Welcome to the inaugural edition of Music is the Glue, the podcast. Tony, Smitty, what's up, bro?
Smitty. Hey. Episode 1.
You have no idea how long we have been wanting to get this going, and then life happens and everything just goes, but we're thrilled to be
happens.
Here. Yeah.
Hey, better late than never, right?
That's right. Well, and the good news is, since we weren't talking about it or promoting it, it's not like we said, hey, we're doing this and then didn't do it.
Right, exactly.
But we privately and very quietly have been excited to get this thing launched for months.
I haven't told a soul. Well, my wife, of course, but
I think my wife's the only one, and like my daughter, a couple of people in my family. But we're thrilled to do this. And so today on this episode, it's going to be kind of different because we just want you to get to know who we are. Who are these two guys? Why do I care what they have to say about music? And then we go from there. So I guess we'll just get started. I mean, Smitty,
I'm excited, man.
I'm
excited.
Tell a little bit about, like where you're from, where you live now, and we'll start with just the personal stuff, I guess.
Okay. Hey, everybody. So I am Smitty. Everybody calls me Smitty. I'm an Ohio boy, born and raised in Ohio. I now live in the Windy City, Chicago, Illinois, with no S for people that aren't from here. There's no S, people.
I'm going to go to the Walmarts when I get to Illinois.
Right. So I'm a music lover first of all genres. I discovered early on as a kid, music was my thing. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a grandfather. I have one grandchild. I'm a pop, everybody.
Hey.
Yeah.
I think I'm a little older than you.
A little bit.
But my kids have not tried to give me grandkids just yet, and I'm not in a big hurry for them to do that, but that's awesome, man. How old
come on,
saying how old your
grandkids? Like it, man.
Well, it's funny. Once I raised my own kids, I'm not much of a fan of others. I'm sure I would love a grandbaby, obviously, if that ever happens. I don't know. Right. I think the only chance I have is maybe my son gets married because he's a lot like me. He wants to be in one relationship and do that. Yeah. But I don't think either of my daughters are ever going to give me a grandkid. They're both pretty.
That's always the plan.
It.
Sometimes it doesn't work out like that, but
that's true. I want to tell, especially my firstborn, forget plans because you weren't supposed to happen. And lo and behold, here you are. So you never know. It's crazy because we didn't know this. I mean, we're going to tell a little bit of the story in a second of how we met and how we decided to do this. But I am also an Ohio guy.
Yay.
I was born in Ohio.
Baby.
Moved to the South when I was 9. And it was a big culture shock for me. But that's where I grew up. That's where I went to high school and college and everything else. And then moved to California with my own family. I had 2 more kids. I had 1 kid in Alabama, 2 kids out in California. So I've got 3 total. They're all grown now. I think, is everybody in their 30s? No, not quite. My youngest isn't quite in her 30s yet. But started young. So I'm not that old. I just started really young. I'm same with Smitty. I mean, just have loved music from an early age. And we'll talk some more about music and our memories and why we love it so much. But that's just a couple of personal things about us so you kind of know who these dudes are that you're hopefully watching and listening to.
Well, most people that are watching this probably know me from social media. Smitty Soul Shack, of course. I started Smitty Soul Shack almost 2 years ago. It's just about me, my love of music, my vinyl collection. I'm an introvert, so this was kind of like my way of listening to music with people, except we're in different houses. So
I don't have to hang out with you.
The story behind Smitty Soul Shack.
Yeah, and that's where we kind of found each other, also on social media. And I didn't do a lot with Instagram for a while, and then a couple of years ago started doing a daily musical, like I call it a musical minute. It goes longer than that. Just sharing facts about songs and artists and stuff, and that really kind of took off. And then I found Smitty Soul Shack, and I was like, oh, I like this guy. And so we started following each other and liking each other's stuff. And then through that, I think, I know certainly I have found other great accounts through you, Smitty, where I'm like, oh man, he follows, I got to follow these guys. And so it's been a really fun process.
Same here.
Yeah. Just to learn about other music, other people. But it's funny, both of us being music lovers. And when we started talking to each other, we found out we had so much in common.
Yeah.
And even though we are so different, we are so much alike. And that's kind of where it was born for us to say, wow, I wonder, we could do a podcast like that where music is the glue. And it's so important, especially I think right now, the world is such a mess, or at least this country, and people are so divided. We wanted to find something that could bring people together and you can have a healthy debate about without going crazy. And I think music is that thing. Yeah.
So about how we met, actually. Well, let me say this. First of all, Tony, I have to thank you, actually, because when I came across your page on social media, on Instagram, you were kind of what I aspired to be because when I first started, all I did was, play my records, not much talking. I was nervous to get in front of the camera. And then I started watching your Musical Minute and I'm like, oh, I love this. He tells the stories about different artists or records or whatever. So I just want to give you a pat on the back and thank you for inspiring me to be where I am now.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad that happened that way. I've had a lot of people. There's some other folks that we had met on Instagram who have sent me messages and said, "Hey, I'm looking for some advice." And I'm like, "Look, man, I'm no pro." And there are certainly bigger accounts doing similar stuff than me, but
of course,
I'm a guy who, I was in radio for 36 years, and I love music. That's how. I've been in that business for so long. Got tired of radio and decided to try, this digital world. And that's what's cool about us. We're Generation X.
Yeah,
we've got the skills. We can do these things. We can do this stuff. We can handle the tech, but we've got just enough boomer in us to bitch about it. It's like, I'm going to learn how to do this, but I don't want to.
Right. Yeah. So also for everybody out there, Tony slid in my DMs, everybody. That's how this thing happened. He slid in my DMs and we talked about a podcast. I was super excited. I was his 12th, option for a partner.
No.
He got to me. I said, that's not bad. Number 12, that's okay. Yeah. But here we are. Music is the glue.
That was truly, I was pet sitting and I was a couple of whiskey sours in thinking about, trying, because I didn't want to do a podcast by myself. It's much more fun to have somebody you can talk to and argue with and or, whatever the case may be. And man, he loves music. We seem so similar. I'm just going to slide into his DMs and see if he's even interested. And I said, hey, man, I had this idea. And I was so happy when you said yes immediately.
Immediately.
Yeah. And that was a process that, like I said, started months and months ago.
Yeah.
And I screwed everything up because we had to go buy a house. And so we had to move and all this. And then I had job issues. all kinds of
priorities, man.
Yeah. But we're thrilled to be here now. So let's talk a little bit about our music history.
Okay.
Smitty, to talk about being a kid, what are your first memories of loving music or the first artists you listened to? I know you had an interesting situation growing up. So tell us a little about that.
So my childhood was, as far as music it was like night and day. So on this hand, you had, my maternal family, my mother, her parents, we were strictly gospel music. That's all that was played in the house. You better not be playing anything. So I was gospel on this side. And then on my paternal side, my father's side of the family, when I would go visit over there, hey, we were drinking, smoking, listening to all kind of devil music, as my grandmother called it. So it was like, I had the best of both worlds. Don't get me wrong. I love gospel music and I love, devil music. So, when I got a little older, I started sneaking and listening to some stuff at my, mother's house. But interesting story. It's funny because my grandfather, he was into jazz. So at an early age, I got a little taste of jazz and I was like, this is, I kind of like it. I can remember my first album that I bought. And before this, I had tapes, but I was 12 years old. And I remember I used to help my grandmother clean the church on Saturday mornings for $5 every Saturday or every other Saturday. She'd give me $5. I'd clean the church, get my little money. I remember I went to Swallen's, which was a department store in Middletown, Ohio, where I'm from. And I bought a jazz album. This is the first album I bought with my own money. I bought a jazz album. It was the Dave Brubeck Quartet, Take 5. Now, this album came out in 1959, so like this 12-year-old kid back in, the 80s. What's he doing buying this? But yeah, I loved it. I heard it. It was kind of one of my favorite songs. It was a really groovy tune. So I was like, I really want this. So I think I paid around probably $2, maybe $3 for it. I can't remember exactly, but that was my start in my vinyl collection. The first one I actually bought.
I bet you'd be hard pressed for kids from our generation, and maybe before that, not so much, but hard pressed to find most people who said, "Oh, the first album I bought with my own money was a jazz record."
Right.
That's unexpected for sure. Yeah. I didn't have it wasn't yes, certainly we had, I won't say devil music necessarily, but my parents were pretty strict Catholics. So, I think the first thing I snuck to listen to, and it might be the first album I bought, I can't remember, was Kiss, Hotter Than Hell. It had the word hell in the title.
That's real devil music.
Yeah, I took the sleeve, I got rid of the sleeve because I don't want to see the sleeve. Maybe she won't notice it so much if it's just like a record, laying out there. And I would listen to that, and that was my first rock and roll. But but if I go way early back, my first memories of music are Dad he had a reel-to-reel machine, so old school, And the collection of music, I mean, I was raised by my grandparents, really. So they were listening to stuff like Les Paul and, Jackie Gleason and these, old, and Glenn Campbell is one of my first memories. But he would put on like watching him put a reel on that reel to reel and run it through and get it ready and then put the stuff on. I mean, I was fascinated.
That seems like a lot of work.
It's a lot harder than just, popping in a tape or something, but it was so cool. It was the process, you get it out, you put it on, and I was just always like, ooh. And then, they'd play whatever they played, and I'd be really into it. So that my first memories are less about less about the music itself and more about the process of listening to music.
Okay.
And how we did it.
Right.
They also had like a hi-fi, a big Zenith stereo that like had big speakers built in, and then you open the top, and the record player and the radio was inside.
Oh yeah, I remember those. Weighed about 6,000 pounds.
Oh yeah, it's a total piece of furniture for sure. So yeah, I listened to some records on that. So I guess I don't remember the first album I bought. I take that back. First album I bought with my own money was Styx Paradise Theater, but I go back beyond that. And the first record, the first 45 I bought them both on the same day for I think 70 or 80 cents. And it was the theme to Happy Days and the theme to Laverne and Shirley. Because I was, even as a kid, obsessed with television. I was like, I'm going to grab these TV themes. And so those are my first two I think I bought with my own money. So.
You know what? That's cool that you remember too. That's like an important person in a kid's life, I think. Remember the first time they bought their own music. God, that's great.
Yeah, it's huge. And again, that's what, that's kind of why we're here. Because we, just talking about music and all genres of music and what we love and what made an impact on our life. And we want to connect those stories and we want to hear your stories.
Yes, sir.
That's the idea of this is that maybe, we spark a memory for you and you can drop in the comments, oh my God, I remember the first record I bought. In fact, do that. Let us know the first record you bought. So maybe we talk a little bit about our current vinyl collections. Do you have a count on yours right now, Smitty?
I'm ashamed to say I don't have a count. So for the last few years, I've been telling myself I'm going to put all these vinyl on Discogs, and I haven't. I have no idea. I've never counted. And my collection is kind of all over the place. I have a lot here, right here in the Soul Shack. I have some in my basement. I have some in my mother's garage. Oh, so I have a lot. One day I will get a count.
You keep it all over the city, so in case anything happens to one piece of it, the rest of it will be safe.
Right. Oh, wait. I have another confession.
Oh?
I don't put my records in any kind of order. They're just everywhere.
How do you find what you want to listen to?
Memory. I kind of have, so I guess I kind of have them separated by genre. I have a little R&B here. I have a little older R&B here, jazz over here, pop music.
My anxiety level right now, my blood pressure just went up when you said that. I can't even fathom not knowing exactly right where to go.
It's wild. I know. I got to do better. I got to do better in 2025.
If it works for you, that's fine.
It doesn't, though. It doesn't really work for me.
It's a pain in the ass. I hate
just do it. I keep telling myself, Smitty, organize this, man. Come on.
Yeah, I'm bad enough. I keep mine simple. I just go alphabetical. That's easy for me. But I see people online who talk about, they break it down by genre and then alphabetical. Yeah. And then it's like that. Have you ever seen the movie High Fidelity or read the book?
No. I've heard of it, never saw it.
Great story. The book is incredible, and I think they did a pretty good job of making it a movie because the book is a British book, but they turned, John Cusack made it an American thing, and they based it in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
But there's a scene where he goes through a breakup, and so every time I guess he goes through something like that, he always reorganizes his records. And so one of the guys he works with comes in from the record store, and he's like, "Oh, it looks like you're reorganizing." And he has a huge collection, and he's like, "How are you doing it?" He's like, "Not alphabetical. Is it?" And he's like, "Is it by so and so?" And then John Cusack goes, "Autobiographical." And the guy's face is like, if I want to listen to Fleetwood Mac, I have to know that I bought it for someone but didn't give it to them for personal reasons in the 1977 pile. Wow. The guy's just like, no way.
That's nuts.
Yeah, alphabetical.
I'm never going to be there. I know that for a fact.
No, I kept a count. I keep it on my phone when I first, because I started collecting obviously vinyl when I was a little kid, and then somewhere around college I ended up getting rid of my records, and I didn't have a ton, maybe a few hundred. I don't know why I did that.
Just
I think
a few hundred.
Well, compared to now, but I see these people who collect their whole lives and have, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 records.
Yeah.
Dude, I love it. And I could definitely do that. But just space alone would be a challenge. So I have around a little over 2,000 records. And I did the great Discogs thing. And it was a massive undertaking.
Yeah.
It was when I left radio, I had some free time on my hands. I said, I've been wanting to do this. I'm going to do it. And it took months. because it's just a process. Because you got to look in the dead wax of all your records. You got to see which pressing you have, and sometimes it's super easy. And then sometimes just like bands do it for fun, like the Police, Synchronicity, there are so many variations of that record.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's insane. Like, which cover do you have? Is it the red, yellow, blue, or is it the blue, yellow? I mean, it was definitely kind of a nightmare. And now I've gotten behind because I'm constantly adding records and I've been busy doing other stuff.
Right.
So I haven't done what I should. I got a box sitting out there that my wife said, you got to get those put away. So, hey,
I bet that collection was fun moving.
This time it wasn't terrible because we moved literally 7 minutes down the road.
Oh,
so I just did it a little bit at a time.
Okay.
Now, when we moved from Knoxville back to Nashville, then I had to have everything boxed up, ready to go. And when I got here first by myself. I had to unload them all by myself because it was summer, so I can't leave them in the truck.
Oh, right.
So yeah, they're a chore to move. And so I imagine these guys with like 10,000 records. How do you even do that?
You know what? Speaking of that, my heart goes out to the people in California who lost their homes, family, heirlooms, stuff like that. I heard a lot of stories about people losing like their record collections from when they were small, like tens of thousands of records. And I couldn't imagine.
Yeah. I lived in San Diego for almost 20 years and we lived out in an area we had to evacuate a few times, and we had neighbors who lost their homes. We were lucky. We had some smoke damage once, but we never lost our home. But it's such a weird feeling because you're walking out the door with your animals. We had pets, with the animals and the kids, and just a few keepsakes that you can't replace.
Yeah.
And then you have everything else that's left behind. You're like, I wonder when we come back, will we still have those things? So the anxiety, what these people have gone through
couldn't imagine.
It's so sad. So sad. So when we talk about music as the glue, and when Smitty and I were talking about how we wanted this to work as a podcast, this is the only episode that'll be just us kind of BS and talking about it and introducing. We'll still tell tons of personal stories, obviously, but we have kind of a format where we wanted we had some ideas, things we want to do that maybe are interesting to you, some deep dives on artists and records and songs and all these kind of things. We're doing the research. We're putting in the work, man.
We're doing it.
And we want it to be we want it to be fun, and we want it to be interactive.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that you'll kind of watch, and then as we do regular episodes and you start seeing some of those things, maybe say, hey, let us know. Hey, that's really cool. I like that segment, or this segment's not that much fun. I don't like that.
Right.
And we'll obviously take it all into consideration.
And if you have any ideas, hey, put them in the comments. Let us know what you'd like to see us do.
100%. Now, I know people are shy on the internet. They don't like to say things about other videos.
Right.
The two most common things I get are comments on the hair and the fact that I sound like Casey Kasem.
You definitely sound like Casey Kasem.
I think it's more the cadence. If you go to Smitty mentioned his Soul Shack. I'm on Instagram, T-Money1968.
T-Money.
And it's every day. Most every day. So I'm getting to where I can't keep up with every day, but I try to, tell really interesting stories or things that I find interesting about songs, records. And I guess what is hilarious to me, I'm just happy I still have hair. And I used to cut it myself and it was super short. My wife was like, dude, you got to do something. I want you to see you have hair, so grow it out a little bit, do something different. And some stylist kind of did something like this. And I said, this is cool. It's pretty easy to deal with. And I'm so many grown men who it's like they're angry about my hair, and it's like, why do you care? You're an adult. You're an adult man cruising the internet to comment on somebody's hair. Get a life, man. So saying all that to say, we know you won't be shy about commenting about giving us criticism.
I remember those days. Hair. Yeah.
Much better than it used to be. Now, are you bald, or do you choose to be bald?
Okay. I'm bald as a baby's butt.
When did you lose your hair?
So what's funny is I cut my hair bald for the first time back in high school. This is when, Michael Jordan was really popular.
Okay.
So I shaved my head. I got some compliments like, hey, we like that. So for the next few years, I would, let it grow out a little bit, have it, kind of low, and then I would shave it. And finally, I just started shaving, and eventually it just started receding,
Okay.
So when I would let it grow out, I would have that, like, George Jefferson haircut, kind of hair on the sides.
Okay, yeah.
Real light up here.
So was it a surprise because you had been shaving? So when you let it grow back, you saw it and were like, hey. What?
Well, you can kind of tell. I could kind of tell, when I was cutting my hair. I used to always cut my hair. I was a barber, too.
Oh, okay.
I've done a little bit of everything, Tony. Anyway, you can notice your hair starts to recede.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Oh.
So.
Yeah, I definitely. This is good, too, because it kind of hides some of that.
Right.
Like right now, look at this. Go. This looks like I got to. But you put some light on there, and you can definitely see. Oh, he's got I see skin. See a good bit of skin up there. It's tough when you're a dude. I don't know why hair is so important to us, but
right. Some of these guys, listen, gentlemen. PSA: if your hairline's back here, let it go.
Yeah, it's time to
let it go, man. It's okay.
And the comb overs. I see those all the time. I'm like, you're not. You're not fooling anybody,
and B, fooling anybody.
It looks so bad.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But my wife was like, she doesn't want me to be bald. She's just honest about it. She's like,
I can't see you bald, sir. I just can't. I can't picture that.
I don't want to picture it. I don't think I've got the head shape for it. Like, you look good.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm fortunate that my head, I mean, I have a big head, but it's kind of, proportioned to my body and it's a decent shape. So I'm not
a bunch of, I'm afraid of what's under here. I suspect it's just a bunch of lumps and weirdness, and I don't want to see any of that. So I'm hoping I can hang on. Sorry, we got off on the hair thing, but we just want this to be a lot of fun. We are lifelong music lovers. We want people to come together over a love of music. And I think if as you continue to watch this and we do these episodes, you might be surprised by some of the records that each of us bring to the conversation.
I know you're going to be surprised.
And I have to give props to my wife because my R&B knowledge before her was so slim. I mean, I knew the big ones. I love James Ingram, I love Jeffrey Osborne, Michael Jackson, all those guys.
Yeah.
But man, she has taken me down a path of old school R&B and hip hop that I'm like, man, I have learned so much from her.
Hey, so, bravo to your wife.
Yeah, she's the best. And then
great service.
I brought her, a lot of rock and punk and things like that she didn't know. So together we're dynamite. And this is what's been great with you, Smitty, is while you also listen to a lot of the things I listen to, there are things you've brought to the table where I'm like, okay, I don't know this artist. So when it immediately makes. Yeah, it immediately makes me want to do a deep dive and learn more about that. So when we start the regular episodes, we're going to be doing these every other week for the foreseeable future. If it takes off and people really like it, we can try. We have real lives too, but we can try to up that. But the format is kind of like we have a few rotating features we'll do, and then we've got some stuff that we'll do every time. And one of the things we're going to do every time is a deep dive. It'll be on an artist, or it might be on a particular album that came out that week, or a song, or a story. Just a crazy music story. One of the first stories I told them, my thing was about the Al Green Grit story, which I wasn't as familiar with. But I mean, obviously the Black community was so many comments, and I got so many followers of people saying, "Oh my gosh, this has been told in my family," and I was like, "Wow, it's amazing culturally how those kind of stories get shared."
They were like, "Who is this white man telling this Al Green's Grit story?"
I got a lot of that.
Know about that?
Yeah, not a lot, but I thought the story was really interesting, and I thought there might be.
Let me take that back. It's not a great story. Right. It's an interesting story.
That's the thing. It's interesting. It's a terrible story with a horrible ending. But I think what it did for me is really kind of open my eyes to a whole other world of music and stories that I really wanted to be a part of and try to be respectful about sharing that kind of thing. So we'll do those kind of things too. So it could be anything. And then we have at least for 26 episodes, and we can always start back over again. We're going to do Tony and Smitty's A to Z.
The A to Z. We'll start with A, of course, on our next episode. And it's going to be, an artist or band that starts with the letter A. And we're going to, pull one from our collection and talk about it. I think that's going to be pretty interesting.
And what's fun about that is we won't talk about it before the episode. So he's going to bring it in, surprise me. I'll bring mine, surprise him.
Exactly.
And who knows what it's going to be. And hopefully we learn a little something. And maybe it'll be an artist you're like, oh, okay, I got to check that out.
Right.
And then again, the rotating features. And then over time, we also plan to have guests. So you can look for celebrity guests on the show and other vinyl collectors, people who love music like we do.
Yes.
To get on and talk about whatever.
Yes.
So that's kind of the idea. That's what we're doing. And we are really excited about it. And we're really hopeful that you will share this information, let people know, hey, these guys are hopefully you think interesting and worth watching. And we want to get the word out there so that you can do that. All right. So as we wrap up the inaugural Getting to Know Us episode, we gave each other a little homework, and this is a tough assignment, to each share our top 5 artists, and then also to recommend one album we think everybody should own. Now, I think you're the same way I am, Smitty. This could change. My list of top 5, there's a couple on there that would always be there, but I could rotate in or out a bunch. So
same.
Disclaimer that this is the list for today. Ask me again next week, and it might be different. All right, Smitty, your top 5 of all time.
Okay, so this is in no particular order, except for my number 1, which will never change, and it'll always be on my list.
Okay.
First, Earth, Wind, and Fire. I love this group. They ruled the 70s. I was, I was born in the 70s. Don't remember them, when they first came out, but this band is amazing. Their catalog is ridiculous. If you're not familiar with Earth, Wind, and Fire, please go listen.
Yeah, 100%. And there'll be some of those songs you think you'll be like, I only know a couple songs by them.
Exactly.
And then you'll hear a song go, oh, that's Earth, Wind, and Fire. Oh my God.
Exactly. You want to give one, or you want me to keep going?
Let's just do yours. I'm curious to see the rest.
Secondly, I have Shaka Khan.
Oh.
I love Shaka Khan.
Icon.
Her voice, so powerful. Again, catalog ridiculous when she was with Rufus and solo.
100%.
Shaka Khan, definitely. Okay, and my favorite rap group, I think they're the best rap group ever in history, A Tribe Called Quest. I'm a jazz lover, so the way they use jazz, in their music, the sampling, just phenomenal. Tribe Called Quest. And the late, great Nina Simone is on my list. I love her. She was amazing, not just for her music, but, mainly for her music. And, of course, my number one, who will never, ever change, I think he's the greatest musician in history, Mr. Stevie Wonder. That is my top 5.
Well,
I don't think I need to say much about Stevie.
I was going to say, what can you say that hasn't been said about him? Well, that's a solid top 5.
Thank you.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, so my top 5, and again, I'll just do this in no particular order. I will say a band that I was kind of late to the game on them, but a band I was introduced to when I was in high school, and they by that time had already put out 4 or 5 albums, so I was late. But The Cure is probably my favorite artist of all time. I love them. I love the music. I've seen them. One of the few artists I've actually paid to go see more than once, because usually once I see an artist, I'm like, okay, check that box, but with them, it's like, I want to see them anytime I can.
Okay.
So love them.
I'm not too familiar with The Cure. I think I know them. Is that the group that had the lead singer with the really white face?
Yeah, makeup, crazy hair.
Yes, makeup. Yeah. Okay.
Friday I'm in Love was a big song for them.
Okay. Never heard it. No, I may have. That's one of those groups where I'm sure I've heard. I remember seeing, them on MTV and stuff. So, okay.
And again, this is why it's going to be fun for us.
Yeah, exactly.
There's going to be artists you bring up and I go, I'm not really familiar. And you're going to think, you're out of here. There's no way you're not familiar with them. All right. Miles Davis. I think about an artist who has this incredible talent and the influence he had on so many other musicians.
Man.
And I also thought about, when I was putting this together, who do I have the most albums by? And I have almost an entire shelf of his records. He's amazing.
Too much Miles.
Yeah, so he's definitely on my list.
Side note, I'm sorry. I named my dog Miles. Miles Davis Smith is my dog's name.
Love it.
True story.
Love it. Okay. The Clash, one of the great punk bands. Yeah. And I think the reason I loved them so much is, though they were lumped in with punk in the beginning, at least, they were so much more than that. And they expanded what could be. And I mean, Mick Jones, the guitarist for that band, his interest in early hip hop, it can be heard in some of their music. I mean, he was like, he goes, because they came to New York and were doing some recording, and he kind of discovered the street performance. He was like, what is this art form? What is happening? I want us to be doing this.
Wow.
And there's a couple of songs on their Sandinista album, especially, where you can hear that influence. Magnificent Seven's a big one. But anyway, great band, love them. A band I wish I could have seen live, but I never did. The Police.
Yes.
Another one of my favorites.
Yes. Love the Police.
Have all their stuff. I've always been a huge fan. I was a drummer in high school and college, and I always dreamed of being able to play like Stuart Copeland. Most people want to be Sting. I wanted to be Stuart Copeland. He played in such an interesting way, and their music is just so good. They were another band that got, they rode that punk wave, played at some of the same clubs as punk bands, even though they clearly were so far beyond what punk is. So definitely on my top 5. And then the last one, I think he's the same way you feel about Stevie as being one of the greatest musicians of all time, or if it were the best. I would put this guy against him and feel confident that it would be a battle. Prince.
Listen, I can't argue with that. I can't. I just can't.
Yeah. I mean, for all of his idiosyncrasies and the personal stuff in his world, you cannot deny the musicianship. Even if you don't like that style of music, his abilities as a singer and a musician, mind-blowing. Not an actor. Not an actor.
No, we'll leave that alone.
I'm sure we'll talk about Purple Rain at some point, which is a super fun movie. And I always tell people, you don't watch Purple Rain because you want to see a bunch of great actors. You watch it because the soundtrack is so incredible. And watching them do that stuff was great. So there's my 5.
Okay, great list. Not familiar with everyone, but
Well, then you have homework.
I got homework.
I knew everybody on your list. That's
Hey,
not...
I'm open. I've always been like that.
So what's a record everybody needs to have in their collection?
Going back to my favorite artist of all time, and I don't think many people would argue with me on this one, but Stevie Wonder's Songs in the Key of Life, released in 1976. It was a double album, and it had a bonus EP that came with it. I think I have maybe 7 copies of Songs in the Key of Life.
Really?
Yeah. That's a problem I have with buying copies of albums I already have. I don't know why. I have a problem, Tony. I have a problem.
It's a sickness. Now I have to ask, when you buy multiple copies, are you buying different pressings, or is it just you see a copy and you buy it?
You know what? I've never got into the different pressings. You know, I never got into that. I see a copy, I buy a copy. Simple as that.
Well, that is a problem, because I mean, it's like, you got this record, man.
But like the songs on that album are just amazing. Songs that I'm sure everyone's heard. Love's in Need of Love Today. Isn't She Lovely? And my favorite song, which I think is the best song in history. And I'm not just saying that. I think this song is the best song in history. The song Ass. Now, a lot of people think it's called Always, but it's not. It's called Ass. Not ass. Yeah. But ass.
Ass, yeah. Be clear on that. I didn't know Stevie Wonder released a song called Ass. That seems so different from him.
So that album's been on a lot of people's, a lot of different publications list as, in the top 5 greatest albums of all time. It's a classic. It's a treasure. And if you don't have it, please. It's one thing listening to it digitally. Did I say that right? Digitally. Yeah. If you can, get the album. It's just something about hearing it on vinyl, please. Songs in the Key of Life. That is all.
Okay. Solid. I don't have as much of the backstory, but mine, and I think it's probably a cliche, because I mean, everybody, I don't know anybody who doesn't already own this album. So that's the thing. It's sold so many copies, but it's a classic rock album. It's an album that was born out of destructive relationships, drugs. I mean, it was a mess. It was the entire band's life was in shambles, but out of that, they created something huge, and it's Fleetwood Mac, Rumors. I think you got to have a copy of this record.
You were going to say that. I knew it.
I don't think there's a better example of a hit record being made in when the entire band's life is in such disarray.
And I have to be honest, I've had the album for years. Actually, I have probably 4 copies of it. Again, I have a problem. I've had the album for years, but it's just been recently that I learned about all of the different things that were going on in the band, and it was so much turmoil. It's such a great story. I'm sure we'll talk about that one day. But
definitely, because you think about bands like the Eagles, where they had all these personal struggles inside the band, the Who, right. and those are all great stories. And yeah, I mean, there were fights. I mean, Kings of Leon, Black Crowes, where the brothers are fighting all the time. Oasis. But I don't think you're ever going to get another story where everybody in the band is sleeping with each other, breaking up with each other. I mean, just insane levels of dysfunction.
Crazy.
And out of it came, the album. I mean, even the album cuts on that record are so good.
Yeah.
There's just not a bad song on the record. So
we got to do a deep dive on that one day, Tony. One episode. We got it.
Sure we will.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there it is. That's our first getting to know you episode. And as we said, it'll change to a regular format on the next one. We hope that you will watch, tell your friends, music lovers, vinyl collectors, whoever. It's about everybody. We named it Music is the Glue for a reason. We want to bring people together with music, have good discussions about it, and we hope you'll like it.
Yeah, give us a chance. Just give us a chance. Watch a couple episodes. Spread the word. It's going to get better as we go along. Make suggestions in the comments, please. It's going to get better. I promise you that.
Well, we're going to work out kinks. We're going to be getting more comfortable. It's like anything. When you start a new project with somebody, even though we've been talking privately, doing this and executing it takes a little time to go. But we appreciate you watching. If you made it this far, then surely you're willing to share it.
Absolutely.
So please do that.
Thanks.
Give us a like. Give us a share. And we'll see you next time.
Music is the glue.